Digital trust, open research, and AI governance has never been more critical. To guide us through this complex terrain, we are delighted to welcome Professor Lasit Gunawardena. Professor Lasit Gunawardena is a professor and head of department in information technology at University of Sri Jayewardenepura, Sri Lanka. He work, his work focuses on digital trust, open research infrastructure, AI governance, and higher education leadership with a strong commitment to advancing innovation and digital transformation in Sri Lanka and Global South. He serves on the board of directors of Orchid Incorporation as one of the only two research directors globally and is co-chair of Orchid Research Advisory Council. He is also elected member of the BCS UK Council for the year 2025-2028 and the 30th chairman of the BCS Sri Lanka section. In these roles, he connects global computing and research communities within Sri Lanka's growing digital ecosystem. He is a fellow of BCS and a senior member of IEEE and ACM, and also has also served as a chair of IEEE Computer Society Sri Lanka chapter. At the University of Sri Jayewardenepura, he is co-chair of Invention, Innovation and Venture Creation Council and chair of IT Governance Committee. Over a career spanning more than 25 years, he has taught and mentored over 10,000 students in the Sri Lankan universities and at Plymouth University, UK. He also contributes national initiatives including Digital Transformation for Education Task Force and serves as an independent non-executive director for Sanasa General Insurance. He is the chief judge of Sri Lanka's National ICT Awards for year 2024 and year 2025. His research includes research data management, AI and education, human-computer interaction, information security, and e-governance. We are delighted to have you with us, Professor Gunawardena. Please join the panel. And it is my distinct pleasure to introduce distinguished speaker, Dr. Romola Rasul, Director of Postgraduate Institute of English at the Open University of Sri Lanka. Dr. Rasul is an accomplished academic and a researcher with an impressive international academic background. She holds a PhD in sociolinguistics from the University of Melbourne, Australia, a Master's of Arts in teaching English to speakers of other languages from Teachers College, Columbia University, New York, USA, and a Bachelor's of Arts honors in English from the University of Kelaniya, Sri Lanka. Currently serving as the director of the Postgraduate Institute of English since 2022, Dr. Razul brings more than 25 years of experience in English language teaching, teaching English as a secondary language and higher education. Prior joining to the Open University, she served as a senior academic at University of Kelaniya and was the senior academic expert for the World Bank funded Accelerating Higher Education Expansion and Development Ahead project from year 2018 to 2022. Her teaching and research expertise spans sociolinguistics, psycholinguistics, academic literacy, academic writing, business communication, language policy, minority language rights, and the preservation of Sri Lanka's lesser known languages. Her scholarly contributions have been published in leading international journals and edited volumes, making a significant impact on the fields of sociolinguistics and English language education. Dr. Razul has also played a vital role in curriculum development, postgraduate education, and national higher education initiatives, contributing to the advancement of the English language teaching and English bilingual education in Sri Lanka. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Dr. Razul as she shares her knowledge and insight with us today. Every meaningful discussion needs a skilled navigator. And we are fortunate to have one in Mr. R.M. Vijayavardhan, who will moderate today's plenary session. Mr. Vijayavardhana is a lecturer at the Department of English and Linguistics of the Faculty of Humanities, Social Sciences of University of Ruhuna, Sri Lanka, the youngest department of the faculty, and in terms of English education, the youngest education departments in the national university system established to fulfill the long felt need of tertiary English literature education in the only state university in the south of the nation. He also is a visiting lecturer at Department of English and Linguistics at the University of Sri Javadhanapura, having graduated from the Department of English and Linguistics from the University of Sri Javadhanapura with a special degree in English. Mr. Vijayavardhana also possesses an LLB honors degree from University of London and qualifications in performing arts from the Trinity College London. His research interest includes Sri Lankan literatures in English, theatre studies, and broadcast and radio communication studies. He is in the process of co-editing the second edition, having completed the first edition in 2020 as the co-editor for playwrights, plays, and playlets by the Sri Lankan writers in English, a uh, preliminary index. He is an avid contributor to programs at English service of the SLBC, the second oldest radio station in the world and the oldest in Asia, has moderated at national events and university collaborations, both international conferences and local collaborations in national tertiary system. And now to steer our distinguished panel through what promises to be a dynamic and thought-provoking exchange, I invite Mr. Vijayavardhana to take the moderator's seat.
Uh, Thank you very much. So, in order to usher the panel, we cordially invite the co-chairs.
And on behalf of the panel, I think we should first commence this morning's proceedings by thanking Saegis Campus for that very kind introduction of all our panelists. And certainly it is a pleasure to be able to moderate this session as well. So, on behalf of the panel, we extend our sincere appreciation for having us this morning here at this wonderful conference, international conference, and we appreciate the participation of international academic online as well. At crossroads, in the pursuit of economic prosperity and a better quality of life, the world at crossroads, contemporary challenges and emerging pathways, exploring today and shaping tomorrow. It indeed reflects a critical moment currently facing the global community. Now, from a language perspective, crossroad is essentially a turning point to make a big decision when you arrive at a certain point and in a very simplistic way you are faced with two or three choices. How do you make that big decision, or what is the decision you take in a way at a crossroad? So most of us are always at crossroads, I believe, in the national higher education system. But to commence this session, if I am to ask our esteemed panelists, our panel members, what are the crossroads at the moment in your respective fields? I know this is a very as much as it's a simplistic question, it's also a very abstract question to put into words specifically. So um, it is a bit of a challenge, but individually, in terms of your fields, what is the biggest crossroad you face at the moment? Uh, we can start with any member willing to commence.
Right. Okay, I will start the answering the question. But first of all, I would like to thank for the Saegis Campus for inviting me. The last year also I participated, and it's an honor for me to participate for this panel discussion. And for answering your question, it's not a simple question, and also it's not very easy to get an abstract answer for that also. But however, from my field, because I am representing the tourism industry, now understanding the challenges opportunities in this industry is very important when you are talking about the tourism in Sri Lankan country, especially because we are in a turning point at the moment as a country, because tourism is the leading industry at the moment in the country. And therefore, it's playing a major role of the Sri Lankan economy also. Now, when it comes to the crossroads of the tourism industry, I would like to provide the answer under five phases, five sections. The first thing is we have a crossroad of implementing the sustainability versus mass tourism. Because if I talk about that, mass tourism, as you all know, we are trying to increase the quantity of tourism or the quantity of tourists who are coming to the destination. And the other side, we have another issue with whether we go for the quantity or the quality. The sustainability is there in that case. For example, how can we practice tourism while protecting the environment and other aspects? Especially all know about the triple bottom line aspects of the business as well as the tourism industry also we have to consider about that. Now we are having that issue at the moment also. All right, whether we go for the quantity and increase the economy or earn more money from that, or otherwise we go for the quality of the tourists and try to give a sustainable aspects for the destination. That's one area. The other thing is technology versus the traditional experience. And I think Dr. Professor Lazit will explain later that now technology versus traditional experience. Now, for example, now it is very simple. We have to adapt the technology when it comes to the tourism because now tourism industry expanding in all over the world. We are applying the robotic technology, AI, VR, augmented reality, big data. Then there are a lot of things, and also mobile apps. Everything is there. But when you are applying that, how can you apply that uh, without damaging to the traditional experience of the people? Because some tourists are willing to get the traditional experience as it is, rather than going for the technology adapted tourism sector. Now that's a challenge that we are trying to blend those things at the moment. Then in addition to that, another thing that we have that economic growth and the cultural experience, because how can we increase the economy or with the earnings of the tourism without damaging to the authenticity of the culture? Right now that's happening because everywhere it's happening because commercialization of the culture, because we are trying to sell the culture sometimes for the benefit of some money. That's the challenge at the moment we are facing from the tourism industry. And also the globalization versus localization. That's the biggest issue. That's according to my point of view, because now we are a small destination as a country and we are exposed to the world. But when we are exposed into the world, we are getting the impact of also. Sometimes we are trying to become more westernized, right? In that case, sometimes our local identity will be damaged because, for example, if you take the countries like China, now China is absorbing everything. They develop their own system, they develop their own technology based on the the world context, because they are not going to become a uh, member of the globalization, because they are in the world but they try to develop their own identity. But like countries like us, can we do that? Are we going to have our local identity and keeping that face the tourism industry development, or otherwise we are trying to uh, accept the globalization and get the benefits as well as the negative impacts also? The final thing is, as mentioned in the early morning, also Professor also mentioned, our senior Professor, Professor Sampath also mentioned about that, and you also mentioned, sir, about the responsible travel versus climate change. Right, that's another challenge we are facing, because when you develop tourism, there's an impact to the environment, because there's a saying called tourism destroys tourism one day, right? Therefore, how can we manage that? Because of the tourism, there are a lot of impacts to the environment. You know that air pollution, the land pollution, the water pollution can be happen because one of the major industry that cause for that kind of pollution. Therefore, you know that At the moment, also we are facing the global warming factor, as well as the if you look at the sea level rising. Due to that, the glaciers are melting down. Now, so many issues are going on at the moment. Therefore, how can we uh, reduce this impact with the responsible travel? How can we aware the tourists about the responsible way of traveling? And those are the issues at the moment we are having. That we are in the crossroad. We are in the crossroads of determining which part we are going to take. Right? Are we going to sacrifice those things for the economic benefits, or are we going to blend them and keep it more sustainable? Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Rangana, and of course, many crossroads, as you highlighted. Professor Lassit?
Yes, Mario, I'd probably like to. So, first of all, thank you for inviting me, and it's a pleasure to be back at Saegis and be in this panel today. So, when we talk of crossroads, and if this question were to ask from just say an academic, I guess an obvious answer in today's context would be AI. However, if I were to kind of coin it to myself, as if I would answer, of course, yes, AI is kind of in terms of academia, it's talked of every day in terms of concerns and how to do this. The elephant in the room for me, AI in any ways. So my first kind of crossroad, I would say, would be responsible use. In other words, adoption without accountability has no is a concern. So whether it is in academia or it is in organizations, the say if you look at a workforce, whether it's in students, making them adapt to use AI to use the technology responsibly is something that I think has to be practiced, and also in certain cases, as well in organizations or as institutions, we need to kind of have certain guardrails. So that would be number one. The second is related but has a slightly different notion. So I would say the second crossroad that I would be referring is more related to the idea of digital trust. Now, we today, in terms of our engagement, we use lots of digital systems, whether it is for our usage in related to academia organizations, or it could be for our consumption, whether it's social media or other sources. So with the advancement of technology, especially with AI, what you would probably notice is the line between what is truth and what is misinformation, for example, isn't exactly a hard line. It's quite blurred. So if you see around in simple terms, if you see around in social media, if you look at, for example, um, the destruction which happens in wars in maybe in the Middle East, sometimes what you see may not be exactly the truth. It's basically generated information which might be quite far from the truth. So how would we our ability to distinguish between the two? How do we distinguish this authentic information and in that same sense, if you get one step back, in a digital world, how do you navigate the truth and how do you trust in systems is something that I think we are essentially kind of being forced into because with the sheer amount of information that we have and how we are navigating it, it's quite challenging for many to distinguish between the two. And my third is more closer to home, as in Sri Lanka. So apart from looking at these kind of issues which are obviously global in nature, if we look our own country's context, and again relating to technology or IT, we are navigating in a bit of a turbulent time as an academic, as in an academic program as ours. On one side, we see with the advent of AI and other um, dimensions, we have a challenge for actually looking at how the talent pool progresses. In simple terms, you find that internships are quite hard to find today for those who are in IT. I get several calls a day, maybe sometimes people I know, sometimes students looking for internships, and I of course can't solve all those problems, and neither could anyone. And you always, for those who are in the industry, for those who are aspiring to join the industry, if you read the news on the day-to-day basis, you hear X organization had, uh, replaced so many employees, and that's not just in global scales. Even certain Sri Lankan companies, you hear this message. So it's leading to quite an apprehension among those who are entering the industry on one hand. The other is for those who are in the industry because of challenges locally. We have seen that there is an outflow of talent pool from Sri Lanka. So as a country, um, uh, on one side, you can't retain to retain the talent pool in Sri Lanka. That so that, for example, if you look at AI, we can't be a nation who's just using AI as a consumer. We need to be able to develop systems which are inherently to be used, relying on others to provide that. I'll give just one example. A couple of weeks ago, I'm sure the audience out here, there will be people who are using Claude as a large language model and getting your work done. A couple of weeks ago, the US government decided that the latest version of Claude, which was to be released, Fable 5, it they decided that it should not be provided to a non-US citizen. And at the time, the Anthropic, who's the developer behind Claude, decide, okay, if they're not anyone use it, and then a couple of weeks later, it kind of managed to resolve this. So, which comes to an idea of AI sovereignty. Like, so we rely on other countries' systems to develop our AI talent, and if at some point in time the access to those services are stopped or restricted, where would we stand as a country? So we need kind of the local talent pool to be developed and to be retained in Sri Lanka. So that's my three takes on the crossroads. Mariam.
Thank you, Professor. And Dr. Ramola?
Thank you. And thank you once more from me also to Saegis for this invitation. So I also have from my field, stemming from my field of English language teaching, um, this idea that we are at a crossroads is evident. And if I can just start from where Professor Lassit stopped, AI and how AI is impacting English language teaching. We all know, I think. So, what is the role of the English language teacher? Things we used to teach, like letter writing, email writing, writing a project proposal, all those things have now become a joke. And all our assessments are unfortunately also a joke. So, the crossroads for us and those of you in the audience who are English language lecturers is how to keep the concerns of critical thinking, analytical thinking at the front and center of our practice. Because as much as AI makes things easy, we also know that our students and ourselves, I think, on occasion, it is making us lazy. It is making us not incapable, but just can't be bothered with engaging in reading for a sustained period of time. We are really not reading anything lengthy anymore. There are ways of summarizing it, there are ways of getting it on audio. We all know. So, in this context, I think as English language teachers, we are at a crossroads in the sense that we have to reconfigure our role and bring it back to thinking, critical thinking, analyzing, coming up with creative solutions. Because the task of teaching our students to do simple writing things is now, I think, gone. That is one. Then I think on the national level, we are at a crossroads because everybody knows the challenges we are facing in implementing the new education reforms. And there has been a concerted effort to address an old problem, hopefully in a new way. The old problem being that our students, our English language learners, can read, they can write, they're good at grammar, but we have failed in enabling them to speak. So there are hopefully some creative module based, activity based, communicative approaches that are being implemented. But the proof of the pudding is in the eating. We will have to do a lot of studies to monitor the effectiveness of what is going to be implemented from next year onwards. There's a lot of concern. The third thing I would like to draw your attention to, particularly because it's relevant to contexts like Saegis, is that there is an increase, there is a proliferation of institutes that are offering degree programs and diploma programs in the English medium. And we all know that if the learner is going to make the maximum of that experience, all these programs, first and foremost, are offered in the English medium. And if our learners are going to perform optimally, then we need to be very critical about the English support we are giving them, because we know that all our students, well, not all, a very small percentage may have come after doing their O levels and A levels in the English medium, but that's a very small number. But otherwise, the rest are coming, having done their O levels and A levels in the Sinhala and Tamil medium. Whether it is a national university or a non state university, magically we expect them to transition to English medium instruction overnight. If you are lucky enough to be going to medicine or veterinary science or something, I hear that from the time your results come, you're going for English classes. But otherwise, the students are just, jump in the deep end or being thrown in the deep end, and then you sink or swim. So we, as responsible institutions, state and non-state, have to look at supporting our learners. We have a duty to support our learners to make that transition to the English medium.
Thank you, Dr. Ramola, for that. And I believe we have Professor Sharma online. Uh, is Professor Sharma available online? Professor Seema Sharma? Okay. She may join later on, I believe, hopefully. So it's very interesting if you think about it. The panelists are from very diverse individual fields. If you look at Professor Lasit from IT, Professor Rangana from social sciences and tourism, very people oriented, and then we have Dr. Romola from humanities primarily. But if you look at the crossroads, they are very, very similar. So I guess we are all coming from different paths, but meeting at a crucial point and trying to navigate how we take that decision. What's the decision we take? And just interestingly, to also add on to what was brought out in the first discussion, we see AI coming into fields where you would generally not even think of it. For instance, Professor Lasit, we have AI coming into now radio studies and broadcast media where presenters are going to be increasingly replaced by AI models and even news reading, for example, is greatly shifting now to AI. And maybe in the future, you would not require a moderator at a panel like this because you would have AI robotics coming into play as well. So I guess the challenge is coming there, and quality over quantity, as highlighted by Professor Lassit. And in terms of how we should navigate, how we should adapt to navigate these challenges. What is your expert opinion in terms of how our field should? I mean, I wonder whether that's even a fair question to ask, whether our field should change or navigate. But that's a different kind of philosophical question. But how do you think then we should navigate these challenges? Maybe we can start with Professor Lasit.
Yeah. So Mario, I think on one side, okay. So when it comes to, since the framing was more on AI and obviously, so at an organization level, now you mentioned this, the idea of radio presenters or moderators, for example, being replaced by AI or news presenters. Yes. So I think with time, what you find is that the more training a model can be, more data, for example, an AI model can be trained on, the more accurately it could replace the work, as long as it's kind of regular process oriented, especially. So, uh, I okay. Going back to the question you referred to, navigating this challenge across disciplines, right? So, yeah, in general, what I would say is whether it's an like for education or for an organization, um, the one primary thing is to consider is obviously, in my opinion, encouraging um, the awareness use of tools is, from in my opinion, important, so that you know how to use it productively, or at least you know how to use it, number one. So and that, if you look at an institutional perspective, if I apply to universities, since I was involved in drafting a framework for state universities, the first thing that we would say is, encourage students to use it, at least to be aware, number one. So, but when you look at an organization, whether it's an university or otherwise, that's not the only, so that's not the only thing you should look for or use for. So if it's an organization, you need to focus on the bigger picture in terms of, for example, and using by students or staff, or for that matter, how much AI you're going to use in your organizational systems. And in essence, what I'm referring to is you need to come up with a policy indicating what you allow and what you don't allow. So whether it is for students, staff, or as users of systems, that's, I think, at an organization level, the leadership kind of has to um, come up with a policy which takes into account diverse needs as well. So, for example, why I mentioned that is, so how I see AI and how it be used by a computing student might differ from a different discipline, and what is acceptable and what is not acceptable cannot be broadly sort of covered in one line across disciplines. So so the degree of accommodation, or how much you use, when to use. But on the other side, I think, just especially looking sort of listening to Professor Romola's comment, I think you need to come across, I mean, at least from individual perspective, like digital disconnection, like, time where you disconnect from anything digital and let students or staff use, kind of get used to things where you are completely on your own, allowing them to think and reflect, etc., is important. Because if you ask me, if I might be watching my own phone every second for a message or something, it's quite a distractor, and that definitely distracts you from focusing on quality time. So there are times, if you ask me, switch off my phone purposefully if I'm writing, for example, if I'm setting an exam paper, and saying exam paper without the use of AI, right? So which is, so yeah. So I think as an individual, I kind of think it's important. Of course, you can reflect using AI later. That's different, and you might get valuable feedback. Yes, but so in terms of challenges, I see individually there are things that you could do for your own benefit, but then as an organization, maybe you need to set up policies on, by listening to those who would be stakeholders within your environment, and setting up policy and account. So, in other words, even at the university level, what we've done is we've set up a framework which says cover these segments, but we aren't saying do this, do that. That has to be set by each individual university and departments. So you need to take to account all of that.
Thank you, Professor Lasith. And Professor Rangana, from a tourism perspective.
Yes, when I answer the question that you have given to me, that means the navigation part, especially navigating the challenges. Now, as I mentioned, there are some challenges I mentioned in the previous answer when I was giving to you. Now, the first thing is the IT factor or the technology part is one of the aspect that is affecting for the tourism. It's true. Now, for example, you mentioned about that replacing sometimes the moderators also from the AI, not only the moderators, sometimes your life partner also will be replaced by the AI in the near future, right? It's very easy because sometimes they may do whatever the things that you ask. Sometimes therefore it's better. Sometimes you may feel like that. But however, so there are some ethical background that whether we are going with that or not, because there's a debate at the moment we're going on. But when it comes to the tourism, yes, that's true. We need the support of the technology with the new generation, especially they are technology savvy, and the tourists who are coming to the destination, also Sri Lankan context, many young tourists, they are always going with the technology, and we can't neglect that. We have to accept that, and we have to develop that. But the problem is, are we ready to provide that in our generations or in our country? Are we having that technology at the moment? That's another factor that we have to answer when it comes to, because we are talking about the smart tourism, right? Smart destinations, but still I haven't seen that kind of development at the moment on the countries like Sri Lanka. It's a developing country. And the next thing is a sustainable model, because I always accepting that when you talk about the mass tourism and sustainability is the best, because again we have to think about concepts like ecotourism, environment-friendly accommodation, environment-friendly movers like transportation. Again, are we ready to pay for that? There's issue in Sri Lankan countries. Are we ready to buy eco-friendly products? Sometimes the prices may be very expensive comparing to other products. Are we ready for that? Are we ready to accommodate our tourists in the eco-friendly destination? That's another thing that we have to ask from us. And the most important thing is when you are navigating, we have to give priority for the local community from the tourism point of view, because tourism is one of the industry which the benefits of the locals. Because as UNWTO clearly suggested, UNWTO, United Nations World Tourism Organization, clearly suggested countries like Sri Lanka should go with the tourism and should give the benefits to the community involvement for the decision making, because they are the people of this country, and they know what to do, and they know how to treat the tourists also without getting their ideas, opinions. If you are trying to take the decision making in the tourism industry, it's a failure. Therefore, involvement of the community and develop them with the tourism, and that's one of the important thing. And also the visitor management. Earlier also I mentioned about the quantity versus quality issue, right? There's a issue of over tourism, because I think that if you have been to some destinations in Sri Lanka like Sigiri, Anuradhapura, when the season comes, it's heavily crowded with the over tourism, not only locals, even from the foreign tourists. Now, are we have a plan to manage this crowd management or visitor management techniques? Now, normally the countries are having that, because these are very important thing without damage into the environment, without damage into the social culture aspects. How can we manage those things? Now, normally we have to have diversified tourism products rather than focusing on a one tourism attraction. Why we are not promoting the nearby attraction? Because normally we are always trying to promote bucket list attractions. Why there are so many attractions in Sri Lanka, but we are not promoting? If we can promote the surrounding attraction, we can disperse the tourists, then the damage or the impact also can be minimized. That's why we call it as visitor management techniques are very important. And finally, we have to strengthen the resilience, because we have faced so many issues last few years because of the pandemic, because of the economic decisions, as well as some terrorist attacks, and badly affected for the tourism. But our recovery period from these issues is very slow. Therefore, we have to think about some resilience strategies to adapt that, and the government should also support, and the ministries also should involve in that, and to navigate the issues from tourism point of view. I think I have given the answer.
Yes, thank you, Professor Rangana, for that. And Dr. Ramola, from again a language perspective.
So, from a language perspective, just to loop back to what I said earlier, a lot of young English teachers, English lecturers are asking in the age of AI, Madam, Miss, what is our role? Will there be jobs for English teachers? Things like that. And what I keep saying, and this is not only for English language lecturers or teachers, I think we need to tell ourselves and remind ourselves that there is a pastoral role, like a pastor, like a minister, a caregiver, a mentor, counselor role that a teacher or lecturer plays. Arguably, AI can do that too. I know people who go for mental well being advice to AI, but I think that um, given the life experience we bring into our teaching day in, day out, we do not need to be insecure that we will be replaced as long as we keep drawing on what makes teaching meaningful to us. Um, Another concern we have, I think, in the field of English language teaching is that what is happening with AI and all the AI tools and AI based language tools that are coming up, there is an increasing tendency to move towards a homogeneous model of English, a model where there is one what we very simply call accent. And going back to what I said earlier, that we are struggling with getting our students to orally communicate, that can be very damaging, because then we all want to speak like AI. Anyway, it's enough of a problem for us with the dominance of British and American and perhaps Korean and all these other popular languages that our young people are trying to speak English that way. But now with AI, there seems to be this need to move towards one English, one way of speaking English, which is detrimental, because then our students who are already struggling to speak become further insecure. There more linguistic insecurity sets in, because we are afraid to bring in our Sri Lankan accent, our Sri Lankan borrowings, our Sri Lankan way of looking at the world, our cultural social influences. They all color the way we speak English in this country. So if we look and listen to a lot of what is happening in the digital world and the accent through which that is mediated, that can also further put our students further at risk.
Thank you, Dr. Ramola, for that. And we are delighted to have Professor Dr. Seema Sharma now joining us online. Thank you, madam, for joining and taking time off your busy schedule to be here. So we commenced the plenary session with the foundational question of what are the crossroads in your field, both in the local and international sense. And I believe we can have an international perspective as well from Professor Seema Sharma. So, madam, what is the what are the crossroads at the moment in the
Okay.
field you represent?
Thank you, and very good morning to all the distinguished guests. I think I'm audible.
Yes, good morning. We can hear you.
Good morning to all the distinguished guests, fellow panelists, academicians, researchers. It's indeed a matter of great pride for me to be here representing Assam Downtown University, Guwahati. So, from a management perspective, I believe we are witnessing one of the most defining moments in the modern history. Management today is no longer simply about managing organizations, it's about navigating complexity in an increasing interconnected world. So here the that I would like to is the technological disruption and the use of takes blockchain, cloud computing, everything is transforming the way how organizations operate. And these technologies have reduced the workload and are helping in a very in extensively or helping in business operations, be it banking or insurance or a warehouse, everything. But these technologies are also raising concerns about the workforce displacement, data privacy, cyber security, as well as some ethical decision making, I would say. So here the managers must determine not only how to adopt technology, but also how to ensure that technology augments human capability rather than replaces discriminately. Second crossroad that I would like to mention is the climate change and the sustainability. So the climate change has become a very strategic business issue. Extreme flood conditions, weather events, droughts, heat waves are what we are experiencing these days. And these disruptions are also affecting the performance of the businesses worldwide. Like in Assam, we are having a flood situation which is disrupting the agriculture, transportation, and other local businesses. Rising temperature is, I would say, another issue. So here, companies are increasingly required to reduce carbon emissions, adopt sustainable business practices, which we also say as the ESG performance. And these are now as taken as the evaluation metrics for how organization is performing. The sustainability, we can say, is no longer corporate social responsibility. It has become a business imperative today. The next you can mark is an example, and the tensions in the Red Sea have also affected the international businesses. So businesses that once optimized solely on the supply chain are now redesigning for resilience by diversifying and reducing dependence on a single reason. And here today, as management, from the field of management, I will say that there is therefore a need to think beyond markets and understand international, political, and economic risks. The next crossroad here could be the evolving workforce expectation. So the workforce has fundamentally changed, and particularly after the COVID-19 pandemic, the change has been more observed to be more, and many organizations, including global technology companies, have also adopted work models, hybrid work models, and these are like the flexibility given in the working hours, and the young generation often prioritize meaningful work-life balance and opportunities for growth over the traditional career path. For today's manager is to have a move from the command and control leadership to a people-centric leadership, because today that command leadership doesn't work well. One more area to be mentioned here is the demographic shifts that have been observed, basically reshaping the labor market across the world. And many developed countries, like including Japan, Germany, and Italy, are facing aging populations. And same in case of India, in contrast, I would say that India has the world's youngest population with more than 65% of its citizens below the age of 35. So this represents an enormous demographic dividend. But here management must therefore focus on workforce the planning, lifelong learning opportunities, succession planning, talent development to remain competitive in the market. And cybersecurity threats is another crossroad that we have faced, and many of my previous speakers have mentioned about it. So these cyber attacks disrupts organizations, compromise customer data, reputation of the organization. The ransomware attacks have affected educational institutes, hospitals, financial institutes worldwide. And managers have to today invest in cyber resilience, employee awareness, risk governance, and data protection frameworks.
Thank you.
One more crossroad is the rapidly changing customer behavior, and this today customers are becoming more environmentally conscious. So management in today's world need to be very have competitive advantage is like no longer determined by solely by what an organization is producing. It is increasingly determined by how quickly it learns, how responsibly it innovates, and how effectively it adapts to continuous changes.
Thank you,
This is
thank you,
thank
Professor
you.
Seema Sharma, and thank you for also highlighting how your field can adapt and navigate these crossroads as well. Time is ticking, and because we are
Okay.
short of time as well, I would like to go into the final question before we go into the Q&A. A short answer, of course. Um, it's really amazing, isn't it, how individual fields have actually now come together in terms of finding solutions or answers to these questions. And many years ago, or few years ago, even we would never have thought of humanities and then technologies coming in together actually to find solutions. So in that instance, it is very important, isn't it, that multidisciplinary research now takes place and we come together as academics, as researchers in the fields. Just a very quick, short opinion on that. Maybe we can start with Dr. Ramola.
Thank you very much. I think that is really the way forward. We have known this for a while. And again, if I may refer back to what I was saying, um, with reference to the crossroads we find ourselves in as educators who are promoting English medium degree programs. Sorry, if we are going to administer such courses responsibly, I think it is imperative that the discipline specific lecturers and the language lecturers come together, especially in an emerging field in our world, but something which is quite popular and well accepted in higher education in the West is academic literacy. So, academic literacy is the formulation of new knowledge through the combination of subject specific or discipline specific lecturers bringing in their knowledge and their worldviews and their epistemologies in to what the language lecturer brings in. Like I said earlier, this calls for a reinvention of the role of the language lecturer, but we need to work together if we are to make um, accountancy degree programs in the English medium, IT degree programs in the English medium, tourism management degree programs in the English medium more successful, more effective, and more sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ramola. Professor Rangana, your views on
Yeah. From my point of view, from tourism industry perspective, for example, now tourism industry is always a multidisciplinary industry because we are working with other industries always. Now, for example, if you take agriculture and tourism, we are working together. We conduct many research how to develop agro-tourism concepts as well as spice tourism, tea tourism. Now, these are some multidisciplinary approach we have taken, and also when we combine the health sector, we have health and wellness tourism as well as medical tourism, spa tourism. These are some niche markets we have developed with the research, with those combining those industries. And also when it comes to the environmental education, we have ecotourism, nature-based wildlife, so many tourism concepts with different multidisciplinary sectors. Now the problem is we need to have support for the policy support when you're integrating these industries together. Sometimes ministries are also integrating and working together. Then sometimes there are some issues when you are collaborating with that. And also we are talking about the especially the city planning concepts, urban planners, especially architectures and urban planners are also involved in the tourism sector when we are developing the cities, especially called as sustainable city models. right? For example, nowadays we are talking about the urban tourism with calm and quiet urban tourism, with the high-rise buildings and more vehicles. Now, most of the countries are moving to that concepts and giving more space for the people to behave freely, yes, and without vehicles, without emissions of these smogs and all these things. Now, therefore, we are working together, and also the technology-wise again is one of the factor that we can't forget always. Now, I always mention that we are catering to the generation Alpha as well as Z generation at the moment. Their behavior we have to understand, because when they come to Sri Lanka, they are coming with a mobile app always, and they want to visit the destination using the app, right? But still we are working on that, but I think very soon we have to do that, because otherwise we are unable to cater their needs and wants. Now, these kind of things definitely we have to address. And finally, the government, they have the tourism policy. I really appreciate that if they can implement it, because it's mentioned about towards an inclusive economy of tourism economy, and they are focusing on the women empowerment. That's very important thing, because 33% of women are contributing to the Sri Lankan economy at the moment. It's very sad to say that majority of them are women, but 33%. But we have to take them and take them to the tourism sector, and also the government is having a policy of tourism mentioning that tourism research formulation group, and we are working on that. Identifying the prioritized areas of the tourism sector, and with the other industries. Now we are working on that. Hope that everything will be successful very soon, and hope so. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Professor and Professor Lasit.
Yeah, Mario, before I go into my answer, I just want to reflect on a thought that Professor Omola mentioned earlier about the support, the role of, in terms of like how the technology versus how the human kind of the involvement of the responsibility of the teacher. About 2 months ago in Japan, a famous baseball player had an alteration with his daughter at home. And this 18-year-old daughter basically was like, was there was a alteration, so she wasn't sure what to do, so she referred to ChatGPT to ask what should be done, and ChatGPT had suggested, well, report it to the child protection authority. Once it was reported, the police came and arrested the father, and later the daughter actually apologized, saying that, well, I was naive, I didn't know what to do, I went and asked ChatGPT, this is what I am. So I'm just trying to do that as a sort of an example. When we over rely on so while we preach technology to be useful, over reliance, especially at our own homes, you might actually I might find maybe okay, to get an answer, why don't you use ChatGPT? I could say that to a child. So that then extends to a situation where they might over rely on technology, and uh, rather than the human, kind of advisory or mentoring. And that's something we have to be careful of. Going back to your question about multi-role, yes, definitely in terms of technology and as we practice in our universities, there is a tremendous opportunity in actually focusing on multidisciplinary approach uh, in on one side uh, to solve problems. On the other, going back to one of those crossroads I mentioned, for our students, for example, one of the things that we say is you learn AI or technology, but then try to solve or try to align to a domain. And if that happens, there are enough opportunities that question, that dilemma, that where are our internships or what do I do after this with AI? That isn't at this stage dire as it might sound. So yes, I'm quite supportive of the multi approach in terms of using technology.
Thank you, Professor Lasit and Professor Sharma. I'm sure you too will be in agreement in terms of this multidisciplinary and collaborative approaches, isn't it?
Perspective. I think I'm audible.
Yes.
So, from a management perspective, adoption requires a fundamental shift in mindset and from managing organizations to orchestrating ecosystem. And I believe management must adapt at least some of the points I am discussing. The first, they must adapt or embrace systems thinking. So today's challenges that we face are basically the climate change, the public health, cybersecurity, digital transformation, and all these are interconnected. No single discipline has answer for all these questions that we are or the issues that we are facing today. And management must become the bridge that brings or connects together technology, tourism, education, healthcare, engineering, finance to co-create solutions for it. Secondly, I would like to say that we must leverage artificial intelligence responsibly. And the managers of tomorrow must combine digital intelligence with emotional intelligence, ensuring that innovations that take place are always human centered and trustworthy. Third area I'd like to mention is the sustainability, and this should become a strategic priority for every organizations, and it is also essential for the long term competitiveness of any organization. Then, fourthly, I would like to mention that management must invest continuously in people. They should become people centric. Why? Because presently the managers are dealing with, you can say, four different stages of generations, and today this present situation requires learning, reskilling, and upskilling. And this is like no longer a choice, it's a must, and these are something as strategic imperative. So organizations also need to strive towards this to face the uncertainties. And finally, I feel that universities and educational institutes must redefine management education. We need to move beyond teaching students with what to think. Instead, we need to prepare them how to think. Experiential learning, obviously, interdisciplinary research, industry partnership, and inclining entrepreneurship, ethical leadership are all the need of the management professionals, researchers, and educators. Our responsibility is also not only to prepare organizations for the future, it is to help them to shape the future where innovation is responsible. And because untimely, the future of management will not be defined by how efficiently we manage the change, but how effectively we inspire people, or we foster collaboration, or we create something which has some lasting value for humanity. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sharma, for that. And as time is ticking, I believe we can move into any questions and answers. So the Q&A session is now open to uh, the floor, to the audience as well. Yes, and online, of course. Yes, sorry about it. Anybody online, uh, please feel free to join in the Q&A. Are there any questions on the chat? No. Okay. So the Q&A session is open to the audience here at home and also online. I think we have been left with so many questions to grapple and think about it. I think it's yes, yes, Professor.
Now, we know that most of the time Sri Lanka get technology couple of years later behind compared to the developed countries. Sometimes maybe 5 years, 10 years behind. Some of the developed countries has posed some restrictions. USA has identified that there is a problem, we have to manage AI. And some countries has imposed conditions of in social media for young kids. So that is, they have learned that they are crossing the border. We are not yet probably realized that as we want to cross the same way, and maybe 5 years after now we post this. Because now recently, I think there is one parliament member in UK filed a case against one of photograph published in the social media against the inventor of this social media. So its case is going on. So, and the other thing there are now, whether the AI can go beyond the control. I heard that some of the in companies supporting the AI has thought about and give a warning now we have to slow down a little bit AI. Because some machines has started to communicate each other the language that humans cannot understand. So that management of AI to be thought about it. And the Mr. Rangana's tourism thing, I think, that you mentioned that the environment and the tourism. So sometimes, if I see it in the developed countries, sometimes I have to go small water flow. So many people are going. We also went, but there's nothing at the end in compared to the waterfalls in our country. But sometimes in our country, people might try to build hotel in the middle of the Singharaja, right? That is crossing the borders in tourism. So I think the management is the important thing. I don't know what you think about it.
So, Professor Dharmanath, just to address the first question about, I just quickly pose the question like this. I guess everyone's seen Jurassic Park when it came, probably in that movie, there's this famous thought, one of the people say, the dinosaurs are kind of, supposed to be single, only female only, and then they say there's no, this won't run out of control. Then one of them say, one of the, not so optimistic one says, nature will find its own way out. So actually, this particular term is now being used in the case of AI because in terms of organizations, as you said, yeah, when you develop a system, most of these systems would say, okay, we have guardrails. It's not going to go beyond that. But as evidence during the last few days, some of these guardrails can eventually, or in some odd way, be found kind of a door, a way around it can be found by AI itself and has, as you said correctly, broken free. So that is a concern. So in other words, it's an ongoing issue, I would say, to kind of contain it to so that it doesn't go out of control and does so. I mean, if you look at the past few weeks, yes, some of these systems have been going into hacking or kind of illegally enter into other organizations on its own. So if you ask me whether that's a concern, yes, it is. So, and in fact, today, President Trump had said, we can't let this happen. And he has his own way of kind of finding solutions with it. We don't know how it might turn out. But if you look at it from a Sri Lankan perspective, there are, I mean, in terms of the extended question, now on one side, using technology, we can bridge the digital divide. Therefore, I'm a strong believer that for that purpose, there is an opportunity in Sri Lanka for our education. But I fully agree. So if you look at the context of some Scandinavian countries now banning the use of mobile devices, I see the thought behind it for sure. But I also see it's slightly difficult to compare the opportunities available for students in a Scandinavian country versus Sri Lanka. So exposing them to technology has to be done carefully. But then the opportunities that are available for a student in Scandinavia who has a mobile phone or technology at home is not available for every Sri Lankan student, and the school is an opportunity to equalize to a certain extent. And schools in Sri Lanka are not equal either, quite far from that. Although I am aware that at least in certain aspects, the government is trying, for example, to enable each school to be connected. So that's my thought.
To answer your questions very briefly, yes, that's true that you have mentioned that we have a lot of resource diversified tourism products, but still underutilized. I sometimes feel that's better to hide those things because rather than opening it, because if you open it, sometimes maybe be destroyed by our people sometimes. But however, as you clearly mentioned, there are some constructions are going on in the wildlife areas, but now people attitudes are changing because our people are not aware of that because now we are going back to the going back because now I prefer to stay now in my attitude, for example, from my perspective, and most of the tourists are also preferring that. They prefer to stay in the eco-friendly lodges rather than stay in the five-star category hotels or the five-star or six-star, seven-star luxury resorts. Because that's the concepts are changing. People are come now. There's a saying that's better to stay in the 5 billion stars rather than in a five-star hotel. Therefore, they are now staying in the camps and looking at the air or looking at the stars at the night time. Now they prefer that rather than staying in the five-star hotel. But however, this is a misuse of the concept because in Sri Lankan context that's happening. Therefore, there should be some rules and regulations to control that. Otherwise, we destroy this environment because people believe that these people believe that blending with the environment is constructing with constructing these kind of buildings with inside the environment. That's not right? Without harming to the environment, without harming to the social cultural aspects, how can we blend our life? Because that's the real importance of the tourism. And also, if I'm adding to that question that you asked from Professor Basit also, right, in the tourism industry, as you all know, because it's a industry where we deal with the human beings, right? We need the human touch always. Without the human touch, we can't think about tourism because even though it has some replacement of the AI, robotic technology, everything, yes, we need that. But some kind of supporting tool. But we need always the human beings because I don't feel that without human beings, if we replace all these things, that it's not tourism, right? That's my personal view.
Thank you, Professor Rangana and Professor Dr. Sharma, if you would like to conclude.
So before concluding, how years from now these generations see us? How do they look at us? Uh, how they look at us as researchers, patients that we or remembered for the crossroads that we have faced, and the future should be helped with the work that we do today. Research is important, innovation is also takes time, but ultimately our greatest contribution is a positive difference that we make to the sure the work we do is measured not only by academic excellence but by the contribution that we make to the society, that is the societal relevance, the lasting impact.
Thank you, Professor Seema Sharma, for that as well. And I believe there aren't any other questions online. There isn't anything in the chat, right? Yes, yes, Professor Mohammed, our Deputy Vice Chancellor, would like your comments. I think, Professor Mohammed, you are online. You are
Yeah.
you are mute. Okay, now we can hear you. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'd like to leave you and the audience with three crossroads, if I may. Before that, the talk about transdisciplinarity, the world works in systems. So the world is transdisciplinary and multidisciplinary in nature. Now, one of the challenges that has faced us as academics and as professionals is sometimes there is a perceived tension and threats between the importance of independent disciplines in their own rights and the value of the collaboration. And one of the things that I believe that we could work collaboratively together is to make sure that this perceived tension is addressed, so such that the understanding that effective multidisciplinary and transdisciplinary collaboration is only viable when we continue to invest in the different disciplines. So that's one point. And on the talk about languages, and languages is the core of communication, but if we even go to AI, the most widely used now transformational AI tools is the generative AIs, and they are all based on language models. So the clue is in the name of the technology itself. But I'd like to leave you and the audience with three crossroads. The first crossroads relate to some work, practitioner work that I've done on decision authority. And it's a phenomena that I labeled as judgment leakage. So the crossroad is as follows. We are now increasingly using AI tools. We as human beings, as decision makers, as workers, are extremely busy, and we are tired and exhausted. So it is not uncommon at all for people to get into an AI tool, upload massive documents into it, ask for an opinion, and then many people can take this opinion and adopt the output because it looks nice and neat, and then use this output to inform further decisions. And the more that we do this bit by bit, then human judgment leaks out of decision authority. We rely on what the AI tools produced because it looks attractive and neat, while it may be unfounded, it may be actually wrong, but we're tired, we're exhausted. So the danger is the human judgment starts to leak systematically out of our decision making. So the crossroad that we have is, are we going to allow this to happen, or are we going to redesign our governance and decision authority at the different levels of the organizations to make sure that human judgment is strengthened and preserved, and that the realization that AI tools optimize, but they can't make decisions and they can't be responsible for consequences. Only human beings are responsible for the consequences, and only human beings are responsible for making a decision legitimate. So that is one crossroad that we have as not just as organization or country, but it's a decision that we need to make as humanity, I would say. So that's one decision, one thing. The second thing in terms of crossroads is in the education and the future of education itself. For quite a long time, we have adopted the industrial revolution education model. The industrial revolution education model, more or less, have categorized the workforce and people into two broad categories: those who think and those who do. So there are doers and there are thinkers. And over the past decades, we've tried to kind of soften, sweeten, but more or less, this divide has been there. So the crossroads is, as we move into an AI-enabled world, are we going to continue on this divide, or are we going to redesign our education system to recognize that even the jobs that are required to do and operate require a much higher level cognitive abilities and much more developed knowledge and human judgment. And that the old industrial revolution archetype is not the best model for the future. That's a crossroad to kind of think about. And then there is a third and final crossroad for me, and this is a crossroad for developing economies. For a long time, developing economies have promoted the cost of labor as one of the primary economic advantages and reasons for investment. So come and invest with us because we have very low cost labor. Are we going as developing economies? Our developing economies are going to continue on the path of competing based on pure cost of labor? Or are we, as developing economies, going to shift towards value creation? So it is not about come and invest because the labor cost is low. It is come and invest because the return on investment, the value that our talents create are much higher than elsewhere. It's not about being low cost. It's about being a much higher return on investment. You get more value. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Mohammed, for those very insightful comments as well from the audience. And I believe that there aren't any other questions, but our panelists will be here. So for those joining us live, you can meet our panelists after the session. For those online, I don't think there are any other questions on the chat. Okay. So I believe as time is ticking, it's time for us to end this plenary panel discussion. It was a wonderful session indeed. Thank you so much to Professor Seema Sharma, Professor Rangana Shalika, Professor Lasit Gunawardena, and Dr. Ramola Rasul. Thank you very much. It was a splendid plenary session and quite a lot to really think about as we leave the plenary discussion this afternoon. We wish you, the audience, and those members joining online, thank you very much again for joining, and very especially to Professor Seema Sharma as well. And we wish you a pleasant afternoon. Thank you.
The first token of appreciation goes to Professor Rangana Shalikar. Thank you very much, Professor, your contribution for the conference. The next token of appreciation goes to Professor Lasit Gunawardena. Thank you very much, Professor. Our next appreciation goes to Dr. Ramola Rasul. Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you very much, Doctor. On behalf of the SAGES International Research Conference Organizing Committee, we extend our grateful and pleasure and our thanks to Professor Dr. Seema Sharma for your participation.
And also the next appreciation goes to Mr. Manoj Vijayvardhana. Thank you very much, Mr. Manoj, for your wonderful work today.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, professors. Ladies and gentlemen, as we conclude the
Months in organizing this conference. So, first of all, I have to mention that as we have come to the close of the session today a little late. Actually, we are delayed in 30 minutes time, but still, please let me go ahead taking 5 minutes of your time. So I'm very much grateful to our Vice Chancellor, Sir, Major General Milinda Piris, though he is not here with us today. It was his idea that we had realized today. So I'm very much thankful to him for supporting and guiding us for this kind of a conference. And then I'm thanking our Deputy Vice Chancellor, Professor Emeritus W.G.D. Dharmaratna, the Director Academic Affairs, Dr. Krishani Anuradha, the Deans, Ms. Yamuna. Felt gratitude to our chief guest and our keynote address, Senior Professor Sampath Amratunga, accepting our invitation at the very first occasion that we had invited. And he had been, as said, communicated with me throughout. Though it was a hard time for me, I learned a lot. And I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to our distinguished plenary panel. Javadhanapura, and Dr. Romola Rasul from the Postgraduate Institute of English, the Open University of Sri Lanka. Though, despite the fact that it was a tiring time, I hope that the plenary session had run well and had generated a lot of insights in us towards the theme that we had planned to be discussed. And my sincere thank goes to Mr. Mario Vijayavardhana from the University of Ruhuna, who skillfully and tactfully managing the time and the flow right throughout. Uh, and I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to Canterbury Christchurch University, United Kingdom, and Assam Downtown University, India, for their continued partnership support and strengthening the international dimension of SIRC 2026. So, my special thank would go to Mohammed Abdul Magid, Pro Vice Chancellor, Canterbury Christchurch University, for being with us online, and also the organizing committee partnerships for Dr. Lorna Thomas, Dr. Betty Featherstone, and Mr. Tim Jackson, and the team. Once again, I would like to talk about Assam Downtown University, India, those who came in teaming with us towards organizing collaboratively this SIRC 2026. So there I have to mention certain names. So Directorate of International Affairs, Dr. Mirimari Basak, Dr. Anuruddhika Dekha, Dr. Pratiti Baman, Dr. Seema Sharma, Dr. Sisupani Murray, and Dr. Mani Mukta Medi, and Dr. Dulmini Medi. So these people were behind us, always cooperating, collaborating, and talking in even WhatsApp messaging right throughout, organizing the work. And a special thank goes to Professor Nabinita Diamari, my contact point from ADTU, who had been also continued in her support in making this program a success. And I'm now moving to our sponsors. So I would like to thank our platinum sponsor, Imagine Creations, and the Ravi Group, GAN Group Canada, and ICT Club of Saegis Campus. It would have, without you all, it would not have been this kind of a success. Then I would like to thank the committees organizing the conference, the advisory committee, and the other committees were web development and also marketing and all the other committees that who were with us. Finally, I would like to thank the panelists, the reviewers, and also the researchers, those who had sent papers and being with us continuously till today. Uh, I also want to thank SURS co-chairs, the co-secretaries, and also organizing committees of SURS in this regard. Uh, Actually, we came to a milestone today. We could upload the proceedings of the conference on the day itself. So I like to thank Mr. Ajan Sri Shreheran, the secretaries, and also Mr. Janidu Fernando for being with us in this Herculean task. Also, I cannot forget the support extended by the management, including Ms. Nishara Apasingha, the IT department, the marketing department. If I tell in names, Ms. Lumbini Gamanigama, Mr. Tilinda, and the team. I am thankful to all of these people. And also, a very special thank goes to the Department of Maintenance, including Mr. Sunil Talagalarachi and the team for making infrastructure ready for the event. Also, Mr. Pramod Premaratna for guiding the SIRC and SURS student committees headed by Master Kavit in the due preparations. I apologize if some name is not mentioned here. For everyone working behind the scenes, I'm grateful. Your enthusiasm, professionalism, and commitment made this event a success. Yeah. So as we conclude the opening ceremony and the plenary session, I hope the connections that we establish in the upcoming networking sessions, the lunch and all these sessions and even the discussion sessions, technical sessions after the lunch break will improve the research quality of the campus as well as your academic life. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Following the plenary and the inaugural, we have come to an end. And the next item in the agenda is the technical session. And we will commence the technical session sharp at 1:30 p.m. in the designated areas.
So now we stand for the national anthem.
Done.